Hi everyone, welcome to our E12 information webinar. We've got lots of you joining us this evening, so we'll give a minute or two more to let you all roll in before we get started. Welcome everyone. Hi everyone, welcome to our E12 information webinar. We'll get started shortly. We're just waiting for a few more of you to come on in. We've got lots of you joining us this evening. Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our E12 information webinar. Give it a little bit longer, let the last few people come on in and then we can get started. All right, we might get started. Thanks so much everyone for joining us for our E12 information webinar for 2022 and welcome. It's really great to see so many of you here this evening and thanks for taking time out on your Tuesday to be here. My name's Charlotte, I'm the Outreach and Access Assistant here at the University of Sydney and I'm very happy to be welcoming two of our fantastic student ambassadors to the webinar this evening who are going to be joining us. So we've got Troy. Troy is our student ambassador and one of our E12 students. He's going to share a little bit about his journey in E12 this evening. And we've also got Gia, who's another one of our E12 students, and she's going to help us with the Q&A at the end of the session. We've also got our amazing outreach and access team here. They're going to be answering all your questions this evening. So feel free throughout this webinar to pop any questions that you might have into the Q&A function and they'll be able to answer them all for you. So at any point throughout, if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the tradition of custodianship and law of the country on which the University of Sydney campuses stand. I'm actually zooming in today from my home, which is on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and also acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people we have here with us today. So before we jump into giving you some more information about E12, I wanted to let you know that I'm also doubling this evening as your quiz master. So pay close attention as we're going through the webinar today, particularly around some of the definitions that we'll be giving and some of the deadlines, as we'll have a few quiz questions come up throughout the session. So let's get started. So what's E12? So E12 is an admission pathway for students who have been financially disadvantaged during their schooling or attended a rural or regional school. So basically E12 shifts the focus from your ATAR and provides us with an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. So we want to find out a little bit about some of your community involvement, what activities you like to do outside of school, and why you're interested in picking the course and studying at the University of Sydney. So some of the benefits of E12. So what do you receive if your application is successful? So you'd receive a $5,950 first year scholarship, an early conditional offer to a place at the University of Sydney with a lower minimum ATAR requirement before your HSC results are released, a formal UAC offer in the main round if you achieve the E12 ATAR and meet any of the other additional requirements, the Vice Chancellor's Global Mobility Award, which has up to $5,000 available for eligible exchanges if you wanted to do an exchange overseas. A University of Sydney Union Access Rewards membership, consideration for a range of additional faculty and accommodation equity scholarships. And in 2022, all of our E12 students actually got university gym membership, and we're hoping to be able to provide that to our 2023 cohort as well. So something to look forward to potentially as well. So the other main benefit of E12 is actually a lowered ATAR. So if you're made an early conditional offer via E12, the ATAR that you need for the course is lower than the ATAR that you would have otherwise needed to achieve if you're seeking admission outside the E12 scheme. So if you head to our website on the E12 section, you'll be able to see a full list of our E12 courses and what their lowered ATARs are. So you can see an example here. Our Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Advanced Studies, the guaranteed ATAR is 80. However, the E12 ATAR is 70. So we often get asked, a question that comes up a little bit is around what an early conditional offer is and what an unconditional offer is and what the difference is between them. So I just want to spell that out a little bit because it can be quite confusing. So an early conditional offer means you will still need to meet all the conditions and the eligibility criteria for your chosen course. So this means anything like prerequisites, if interview or a personal statement, you'll still need to do these. A conditional offer means that you're eligible for an unconditional offer if you meet all these conditions. So an unconditional offer then means it's basically your formal offer ready for you to accept from the University of Sydney. So that's the difference between the two. So as we mentioned, we have about 90 courses that are offered under E12, and they come from all of our different faculties. So everything from architecture, design and planning, business, arts and social sciences, education and social work, law, science, music, engineering and IT, and medicine and health. So the full list of all of our courses is available on our website, and you'll be able to see everything from Bachelor of Arts to a Bachelor of Commerce, education, social work, law, nursing, and music. So there's a full list available for you on our website. You'll also be able to find some information about some of our faculty equity scholarships. So there's quite a number on our website, and I'm just going to go into detail of one example that we have. So if you're thinking about studying business, so that's either our Bachelor of Commerce or our Bachelor of Commerce Advanced Studies, you might be eligible for our Inspired by Business program. So if you're applying for E12 and you preference a business course, you may receive up to $10,000 per year for the duration of your undergraduate business degree as an IBB student, access to some mentoring opportunities, and additional support and career planning from the business school. And I know Troy is an IBB student, so he's going to touch a little bit later on the IBB program and some of the benefits that he's found from the program. Alrighty, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start our first quiz. Be patient with me while I launch it. Alrighty, so there's two questions for our first poll. So the first one is, what is an early conditional offer? So you've got three choices. My formal offer to the University of Sydney, an offer guaranteeing my place as long as I meet all the conditions and eligibility requirements for my preferred course, or C, an offer to the Prep for Sydney Uni course. And the second question, what is an unconditional offer? My formal offer to the University of Sydney that's ready for me to accept, an offer guaranteeing my place as long as I meet all the conditions and eligibility requirements for my preferred course, or an offer to the Prep for Sydney Uni program. So I can see lots of responses coming in, so I'll give you a little bit longer. They're going up. All right, fantastic work, everyone. Okay, I think everyone has pretty much responded now. which is great to see. So the answer to the first question, which is what is an early conditional offer? So we've got some fantastic responses, but the correct answer is an offer guaranteeing my place as long as I meet all the conditions and eligibility requirements for my preferred course. So 90% of you got that one, so congratulations, that's awesome. Our second question, what is an unconditional offer? So 81% of you got my formal offer to the University of Sydney that is ready for me to accept, which is fantastic because that's the correct response. So well done, everyone. I'll pop the results up now so you can have a look. So there we go. Fantastic job. Alrighty. So now that we've talked a little bit about what some of the benefits are of E12, let's go into the E12 eligibility and how to find out if you're eligible for the program. So in order to be eligible for E12, you'll need to be assessed for UAC's Educational Access Scheme, or what's known as EAS. So the EAS is a scheme designed to assist students whose studies in Year 11 or Year 12 were negatively affected by circumstances beyond their control, and to help you gain entry into university. So to apply for EAS, you'll need to be assessed as either experiencing financial hardship or residing at the time of your UAC application in an area determined by the Australian Bureau of Statistics as being in the lowest 25% of socio-economic status in Australia, or attending an Australian rural or regional school during Year 11 and Year 12. So we'll look at the first one. So our first criteria is socio-economic indexes for areas. So in order to apply for EAS under this criteria, you firstly need to complete a UAC application for undergraduate admission. So that means going into UAC and submitting your application for undergraduate admission. Once you've done your application, make sure that you include your home address and postcode. This is really important, as UAC will automatically generate an EAS application for you. You won't need to submit your own application if the residential address that you've entered is identified by the Australian Bureau of Statistics as being the lowest 25% of socioeconomic disadvantage in Australia. So if that's the case, UAC will then notify you by email within 48 hours of completing your application, and you won't need to do anything. So once that's created, you'll then be eligible to apply for E12. So I'll just go through what it might look like when you receive that notification. So once you've logged into UAC and completed your undergraduate admission, you'll have something that comes up on your screen looking like this. This is basically your UAC homepage. You'll see there's something called quick links and your correspondence. So this is basically where UAC will provide you with updates about your applications. So you'll need to hop in here after you've done your undergraduate application, just to check whether UAC has provided you information about your application. So you'll then receive something that looks like this. So this is basically from UAC stating that they've already automatically generated an Educational Access Scheme application for you. They'll also let you know that no further action is required by you. Alrighty, let's move on to the next one. So if you're applying for the Educational Access Scheme, if you attend a rural or regional school, the application process is pretty similar to the previous application process. So you'll need to log on to UAC and complete an application for undergraduate admission. You'll then need to provide information regarding the school that you attended in Year 11 and 12. So information like the school's name and the school address. UAC will then notify you by email again within 48 hours of completing your UAC application if you've got an automatically generated application for SO1R or SO1C. So these are the codes that they use to determine whether your school fits into the list of rural or regional schools. So if that's the case, again, it's automatic. They've already created an EAS application for you. You don't need to do anything else. That means you're eligible to apply for E12. Again, same with this application as the previous one, you'll need to make sure that you hop onto your UAC dashboard and check the correspondence from UAC, because that's where you will receive any updates if they've generated the application for you. So keep checking back, because that's where UAC will provide you with updates about your application. Alrighty, so then we move on to the final one, which is financial hardship. So the EAS application for financial hardship is a little bit different from the first two. So rather than an automatically generated application, this is one that you actually need to create yourself. So you'll need to, again, hop onto UAC and create an application for undergraduate admission. However, then you'll need to go onto the UAC homepage, and it will contain a link for you to apply for EAS. So apply for the Educational Access Scheme. You'll then need to open the category for financial hardship that you wish to claim for. So there's 4 categories for financial hardship, and I'll just scroll through so that we can chat through them. So they're all given codes. So the first code is F01A. So this is the category that you would use if you're receiving youth allowance, AB study, Oz study, or youth allowance, AB study, or Oz study for a period of at least 3 months during year 11 and 12. F01B, so that's again another category, is if you're receiving other Centrelink's means tested benefits. So that could be something like a disability support pension. F01C is for exceptional financial hardship. So this is the category if you've experienced financial hardship during year 11 and or year 12, but you may not have received Centrelink benefits or been eligible for Centrelink benefits. And then finally, F01D, which is if a parent or guardian is receiving Family Tax Benefit Part A. And I've included below a link, and this basically will take you through to all the documentation that you will need to provide in support of claiming for financial hardship. So UAC will ask you for a list of supporting documentation which you'll need to upload when you're looking at your financial hardship application. So they might ask for things like proof of family tax benefit A or B, a healthcare card, or an ATO notice of financial assessment. But if you hop onto the UAC website, there's a full list there of all the documentation that you'll need to provide and instructions about how to upload it onto their website. Alrighty, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Troy. Troy's going to give a little bit of information about his journey through E12, how he found out that he was eligible for the E12 scheme, some of the benefits that he's found about E12 since he's been in the scheme, and provide you with some tips and tricks for answering the 3 E12 questions. So I'll hand over to Troy.
Thank you, Charlotte. So just as an introduction to myself, we go on to the next slide. Thank you. So my name is Troy, as Charlotte has said. I'm currently in my 3rd year of a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Advanced Studies, majoring in banking and finance. I came through the E12 scheme, and this is my background. So I attended a school called Penrith Selective High School, and I graduated in 2019. That was my 2nd high school. So I attended another school called Blacktown Boys High School out in Blacktown for 2 years, and then I transferred over to Penrith. In my high school, I studied advanced mathematics, advanced English, biology, economics, PE, and chemistry. So really, really random mix of subjects that doesn't really relate to finance now, but that's totally fine because I enjoyed those subjects. I ended up dropping chemistry at the beginning of year 12. So if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to pop it in the chat. It can be scary dropping subjects at the beginning of year 12, but I realized that it wasn't something that I was really interested in, so it was better off for me to drop it. At the University of Sydney, I received the E12 scheme, so I came through that pathway. From that, I received the Inspired by Business Scholarship that Charlotte mentioned previously, and then on top of that, I received a really random $400 a year scholarship called the Freemason Scholarship, just because one day I was bored and I went onto the university website and I found this scholarship that I met the criteria. I applied, and after a couple of weeks, I ended up receiving it. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a really cheesy quote that I found in year 12. It just basically, be who you needed when you were younger. So this is just something that I always include in presentations that I do, or when I'm talking to school, high school students, just basically knowing where I came from and just trying to be the person I needed when I was younger, which is which comes into doing stuff like this. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for all of you guys as students. And it's just, I find it a bit sad that not everyone knows about these opportunities and then they just go out being missed. So that's what I'm trying to do and talk about E12 and all the benefits of the program. So my journey as an E12 student. So how did I find out about E12? I had no idea about anything to do with university when I was in year 11 and E12. All I knew was my cousin went to university, my dad went to university, and basically no one else in my family went to a university. So how did I find out? I was at a selective school, so we had a lot of opportunities with the careers advisors and the principals. I just had a career consultation with my careers advisor one lunchtime for 20 minutes. And he said, hey, do you know anything about this program called E12? I had no idea about it. And then he just walked me through it. And then we were going through all the other post-school options for me. And when I found out about E12, it was just amazing. I could get this scholarship, I could get this early offer, I can get into the commerce degree that I want to do with ATAR 10 points lower than what it was being advertised at. And then there's a bunch of other benefits as well. From that, how did I apply? So I tried to get as much knowledge and as much information as I could as possible about the E12 scheme. So what did that look like? I went to the Western Sydney Careers Expo, and if any of the USyd staff that are here tonight were at that expo, they will know that I stood there for about 3 hours talking to every single staff member about what is E12, how do I get in, what's the application steps, what's the benefits, as well as all the students. From that, there was also a business school specific event for E12, and that inspired my business scholarship that I went to. And I also went to the open days for all the different universities, especially at the Sydney University one. I talked to basically every single E12 student that I could find. It did help that a few of the students from my high school that I was friends with in the year above were E12 students, and they were at open days. So I could talk to them about that and their tips and tricks for applying for the program as well. Okay. So what actually made me eligible for E12? So the thing that made me eligible for E12 was 2 of the 3 criteria. So the first one was that my mom was receiving something called Family Tax Benefit Part A. That made me eligible for the FO1D section of the EAS application. The second one was I grew up in an area around Penrith called Mount Druitt and St. Mary's. That placed me by my residential address as residing in an area of socio-economic disadvantage. The FO1D, I remember distinctively going home one night and asking my mom about family tax benefit. I had no idea what it was. And then she said that she received it. So then I put that through my UAC application. And I also remember UAC sending me a notification saying that I was eligible based on where I lived. How did I apply? So I applied as you normally would through the UAC using the school's recommendation scheme, and then also constant consultation, but I call it badgering as well, with the University of Sydney staff members, just trying to answer questions. I was actually going through my emails the other day, trying to do this presentation, saw all the emails I was writing to all the admissions pathway team about different courses and how I wanted to combine them and if I could go through the E12 scheme. So number 1 tip in this section would be just trying to see what you're eligible for. Just because you might not live in a certain area that is defined as low socioeconomic disadvantage, you could also meet other criteria such as the youth allowance or the family tax benefit or extreme financial disadvantage. And then also constant consultation, careers advisors, principals, teachers, and also the USyd staff through the inboxes. Transition. So that's a really weird photo of me on the side, but it's one of the only ones I could find. That is at a University of Sydney Clubs and Society event called BAP. So that's a little event where I had to hold up the poster because it kept on falling over. Transition. So how did E12 help my transition to uni? So although I went to a selective school, I felt quite alone when I was coming to university. Not many of my friends were actually doing the same courses as I was doing. So a lot of my friends were doing stuff like medicine and engineering. I was sort of one of the only 2 to 3 business school students that came from my friend group who were coming to University of Sydney. So I went to the E12 Welcome Week event. That is both a social and a professional event. So the social part of it was we had a scavenger hunt through the whole university with all of the E12 students, not just from the business school, but I was with engineering students and medicine students. All the different E12 students across the university were doing random scavenger hunts. I think one of the questions was go find a statue of a man holding a lion. And I somehow knew that that was Gilgamesh next to the rock climbing gym. But then we also had the professional event where there's like little scholarships, welcome night, welcome lunch, because E12 comes with the scholarship. There's a little welcome lunch that all the E12 students come to. The food was pretty good, and you also get to hear from some of the academics and some of the chancellors at the university, just tips and tricks of how to get by at university compared to high school. Specifically for the business school, since I'm a commerce student, there was something called the Strategies for Success Day. This is where they had the scholarship supervisor, as well as some of the lecturers and academics within the business school come in and talk to students about degree progression, so choosing the right units of study, how do you basically do it properly so you don't have to repeat subjects, as well as getting older students to come in. So I started uni in 2020. Since 2020, I've been to every single Strategy for Success day as an older student, mentoring younger students. And then the mentoring section just at the bottom of that slide, that is to do with both the uni-wide mentoring program for E12 students, as well as the business school specific one where I got a mentor who was in his 4th year when I started uni. And then now I've mentored 2 students who've come through the E12 program as well. E12 benefits. So Charlotte's touched a little bit about this from the benefits and perks, but I thought I'd just speak a little bit about this from a student's perspective. So mentoring, that is a brand new program that's being offered from the end of this year, beginning of next year. That is where E12 students in their penultimate or final year can get mentoring from a professional partner of the university. So for example, I know a lot of people in the business faculty want to do something like consulting or investment banking. The university has a lot of partners within those firms. They can get people who've come from the university to mentor 3rd and 4th year or penultimate and final year E12 students about career progression and how they've gone into the workforce being an E12 student. You get further scholarships, which is really nice. So Inspired by Business is a $10,000 scholarship per year. The reason that you can hold further scholarships with and also the E12 scholarship is something to do with primary and secondary scholarships. So a secondary scholarship is something like E12 or Sydney Scholars that's valued at $8,000 or less. A primary scholarship is something that is over $10,000, over $8,000. So I can hold my E12 scholarship, which is roughly $6,000, and I can also hold the IVB scholarship, which is $10,000, and then also my $400 scholarship because that's a secondary scholarship. Vice Chancellor's Global Mobility Award. So Charlotte touched on this, but that is a $5,000 scholarship if you go on a semester or year-long exchange, and you can get that up to 2 times a year during your university life. So you can even get that for short-term programs. I'm planning to use that scholarship when I hopefully go to the Philippines in February next year as part of a University of Sydney Business School study tour. Transition assistance, so that's what I mentioned just on the slide before regarding the Welcome Week events and also the strategies days and all those little community events that the university offers, and then that leads into the community and belonging. So I know specifically in the business school, we have an E12 chat with every single E12 business school student, but there's also Facebook groups with E12 students. There's just the general community of you meet these people at the Welcome Week events, and then you know them when you're walking around. You say, oh, you're an E12 student. Yeah, I'm an E12 student. Even being a student ambassador, you meet all these different E12 students and what they've used the program for. And of course, you get the USU discounts, which is really nice. So USU discounts, you have the standard membership and you have the rewards membership, which is roughly $50 a year. But because you're an E12 student, you get that for free in your first year, 10% off food across the uni. And also during exam periods, the USU has their food truck. So they had their food truck outside of Fisher Library for about 3 weeks. Standard members get $9 lunches, whereas if you're a reward member, you get something like $6 lunches and also like free ice cream. So there's a lot of benefits around USU discounts for students. Okay, tips and tricks for E12 questions. This is probably, if I could go back and apply for E12 again, this is the part that I would pay most attention to, just because this sort of gets rid of a lot of the fuzziness and haze around applying for questions. I know no one really likes answering interview questions, but I'll try my best to go about how I would approach it doing these presentations and being an E12 student. So the first question is specifically targeting your extracurricular activity. So the first question talks about what is an extracurricular activity that you engage in, and it's changed a little bit since when I was in E12, but basically the idea is why is it meaningful to you / how did it affect you? So what we want you to focus on is yourself. So this is one time where you can completely write 200 words just about yourself and how you have made an impact specifically. So specifically what I talked about was how I was a prefect during year 11 and year 12. So being a prefect, I had a lot of responsibilities that weren't on my schoolwork. So an extracurricular activity is anything that isn't your schoolwork. This can be being a prefect or a school captain, but it can also include stuff like having a part-time job or taking care of your siblings or your grandparents if your parents aren't home, or anything that basically isn't you being at school. This can also include stuff like sport or cultural activities as well. What we really want you to emphasize is we want you to show sustained contribution. So we want you to show how you personally have caused have had an impact on cause and effect. So we want to show something like what was happening before you started doing this program or what has happened after. But we also want to show see your skills and how you've learned from these activities. So stuff like time management, communication, teamwork, leadership, all these buzzwords that your careers advisors talk to you about, they're actually very important for these types of questions. So we want to show how you have basically learned from your activities. So for example, being a babysitter, that could be something like time management as well as teamwork and leadership and caring. So you're showing how you have learned from being a babysitter. Same as caring for family members or sport, the most common one. I'm in a sports team. I do leadership and teamwork and communication. For the second question, this is about your academic achievement. So I know when I was in year 12, I thought this had to be something like, I was rank 1 in extension maths, or I got 100% on all my exams. It doesn't have to be something like rank 1 or 100%. What we really want to see is that you have growth and development. So specifically, I talked about how I did PE in year 11 and year 12 and how I wasn't performing that well during year 11 and year 12. And I was getting around 50 to 60%. But then I started consulting with the academic liaison for stage 6 for year 12 in my school. And I talked to my PE teachers and I did past papers and I consulted with other students about answers and how do I approach this type of question. And then I ended up improving my mark to 80%, 90%. So you want to be showing the progression or how you have grown and overcome obstacles during your studies. And you can also highlight stuff such as projects. So stuff, if students are doing woodwork or visual arts, you have a major work. So that's something that you can emphasize. So talk about how you have gone from thinking about what visual arts major work you want to do to steps doing it and then producing the final artwork at the end of your high school journey. And it's going to also relate to PIP in society and culture. So you're doing your personal interest project. I know when I was in year 12, a lot of my friends were asking me to answer their PIP surveys for society and culture. So that's something you can also show to demonstrate your academic achievement and growth over your high school journey. The third question is to do with your purpose and why do you want to do the specific course that you have chosen. So the number one tip that I can give for this question is to back yourself and use concrete examples. So we want to hear something that actually resonates with you. So it's very easy to tell when someone isn't being very genuine when they're answering these types of questions. So for example, a very common answer would be, I want to do medicine because I want to help people. That's a very good answer. It's very good that you're doing medicine because you want to help people, but it doesn't really show your drive or why you really, really want to do medicine. So create concrete examples. So stuff like, I want to do medicine because in year 10, I did work experience at a hospital and I have elderly grandparents and I've seen how health can impact the family and I really want to make a difference in people's lives. So we want to see something that's really specific and also draws on your relevant experience. Specifically for me, I talked about how I really, really enjoyed economics during year 11 and year 12. And I was really interested in business and owning my own business. So I really wanted to study something like finance, and finance is offered under a Bachelor of Commerce at the University of Sydney. So you want to leverage your experiences and your unique background. And my final tips for, one more tip for question 3. If you're not really sure what degree specifically you want to do, so as Charlotte mentioned before, for E12, you have to choose a specific degree by the time of 15th of September midnight as your E12 preference. If you don't really know what degree you want to choose right now, because there's a lot of degrees out there and there's a lot of different options, you can write a general response to a certain area. So for example, the healthcare one, healthcare is very vast. That can be anything from physiotherapy to occupational therapy, nursing, dentistry, or classic doctor of medicine, becoming a doctor. So if you're not really sure what degree you want to do, but you have a sort of a field you want to go into, you can definitely write a response to that field in general. So I wrote my one to business in specific, and I narrowed it down to Bachelor of Commerce. And then after you've sort of thought about the ATARs, which I'm going to go into a little bit, once you've thought of that sort of stuff, then you can narrow it down to a specific course. That leads me into that you should be choosing a realistic course. So for me, my actual example of how this impacted my E12 decision was I really, really wanted to study law. So I really wanted to do a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Laws, which comes down to a 95 ATAR as an E12 student. However, I was sort of on the fence. I didn't really know if I could achieve that ATAR. Yeah, I didn't achieve that ATAR, so I'm glad I went with my decision. But when I was taught at the UCIT events at like Western Sydney Careers Expo, really nice staff members were telling me that I should be choosing a course that more resonates with the ATAR that I'm going to achieve. So this is the part where you need to be talking to your careers advisors and your principals and your parents about what your ATAR is looking to be like. I think my ATAR prediction was something like 93. I ended up getting a 94, so it's pretty accurate. But I knew it wasn't going to be above the 95 to get into commerce law. The worst thing that could have happened for me is I would have written my responses and applied for E12 under Bachelor of Commerce and Bachelor of Laws, and I would have missed out. So I wouldn't have been able to get the scholarship, but then I wouldn't have been able to get my Inspired by Business scholarship either. So I figured that it'll be better off for me to choose Bachelor of Commerce, which had an 85 ATAR requirement under E12, which is a lot lower than the 95 requirement for commerce law. And then I ended up getting to that course. So this is more prudent to stuff like medicine. So just because the ATAR for medicine drops as an E12 student, it's still a very, very high ATAR. But then you have to remember other factors such as medicine at University of Sydney is all postgraduate. So you can do anything else, still get the E12 scholarship, still get the benefits of being an E12 student, and then apply to do medicine after your 3rd or 4th year of university. Same as physiotherapy, which has a very, very high ATAR, and a lot of those very specific quota courses that have like little asterisks next to them with the indicative ATAR. Definitely recommend just having a consultation with your career advisors and teachers about what your ATAR is looking like and choosing the course based on that. And remember, you can still write a general application to what the specific area. So for example, medicine and physiotherapy, it's a health area. So you can write a response to becoming someone working in the health field. Reach out for help and attend events. So there's a lot of you in this call. So there's a lot of people who are reaching out already and attending events. So this is an event that's focused on E12. But then there's also the careers markets. There's a really big careers market coming up on the weekend. I'll be there personally if anyone has any E12 questions. But then we have webinar Wednesdays, which goes through different faculties and other admission criteria to university. And then of course, open day this year, it's on the 28th of August. So we definitely encourage you all to come out, and there'll be specific people talking about E12, also be other students. You can ask them about their journey as an E12 student as well. I think that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Troy. Really awesome to hear your experiences about E12. Thank you. All right. We'll now go through some of the E12 eligibility criteria. So we've touched a little bit on the educational access scheme. So now we're going to look at some other eligibility that you'll need to meet in order to meet the E12 requirements. So you'll also need to be undertaking the HSC or IB at a New South Wales high school. You'll need to be a domestic student. So unfortunately, international students can't apply for E12. Supported by your school principal. So part of the EAS application process is your school principal will be notified that you're applying for E12. So good to also give them a heads up and just let them know that you've made an application, just so they can keep an eye out for it. And able to meet any other additional admission criteria. So as we mentioned earlier, part of the process is you'll receive a conditional offer, which means you need to fulfill any additional admission criteria for your E12 course in order to be eligible. So again, looking at making sure that you might meet the mathematics prerequisite. If you have to submit a personal statement or do an interview or an addition, making sure that you're able to do those things as well. So in summary, so how to apply for E12. So first of all, start your UAC application for undergraduate admission. So as we mentioned earlier, include your home address and your school to see if you're eligible for the socio-economic indexes for areas or are rural or regional or fall under the rural or regional school categories. If you're applying for financial disadvantage, make sure that you complete the educational access scheme application. So remember, this is the one that you need to complete yourself. This isn't one that UAC will automatically generate for you. Make sure you do a bit of research around what are the categories that will apply to you, and that you have all your supporting documentation ready to go to upload if you're applying for financial disadvantage. So if you have any questions, there's a whole list of supporting documentation on UAC's website. And it will let you know sort of what documents you need and how to apply for financial disadvantage through that scheme. As Troy mentioned, then choose an E12 course and check the course requirements. So you'll see on our website, there's an E12 section within our website. It lists all of the over 90 courses that we have under the E12 scheme. And you'll also be able to see within each of those courses what the E12 ATAR is. So you'll be able to see a full list of courses that are eligible under the E12. You'll also be able to check the course requirements for your chosen course. Again, making sure that you check if there's any additional admission criteria. So looking at things like whether you need to meet the mathematics prerequisite or submit anything additional to be eligible for the scheme. All right, finally, you will submit your E12 supporting documentation. So this is what Troy was talking about earlier, giving some tips and tricks about how to answer the 3 questions via UAC's schools recommendation scheme. So the schools recommendation scheme basically gives you the opportunity to be assessed on a criteria other than or in addition to your ATAR. So as Troy mentioned, we're looking at you know, your community involvement, what activities you do outside of school, your academic achievements and what you're most proud of, and also why you're motivated to study the course that you've chosen. So Troy's talked a little bit about the best way to respond to these 3 questions. There's only 200 words. That's the limit for the number of words for each question. So really important to sort of draft your responses first before you submit your application. And we're also running some E12 consultations throughout July, August and September. So we're available to assist you in drafting your application. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, where you can book to have a consult with someone in our team. Alrighty, so in order to, I guess, submit your SRS application and upload your 3 E12 questions, basically, again, you'll come back to your UAC homepage. You'll see down the bottom, there's something called the Schools Recommendation Scheme. So that's the portal that you'll use to upload your responses to the 3 E12 questions. So once you click on that, you'll be taken through to this screen. So this is basically the instructions about how to apply for SRS. So it will give you the deadline with which you have to submit your application. So this one says it's midnight 20th September 2020, but for this year, it's Thursday the 15th of September 2022. So make sure that you keep that deadline in the back of your mind. That's the one that you're working towards. Alrighty, so then you'll be taken through to this page. So you'll need to click in that section here, institution-specific criteria. This will basically download the supporting documentation that you put your answers into. So once you've downloaded that, copy and paste your answers over into that document and then re-upload them into this portal. Make sure that you select the institution as the University of Sydney and then continue through with your application. Alrighty. So finally on how to apply. So once you've done that, you've submitted your E12 questions, make sure that you place the course you wish to be considered for under E12 as your first University of Sydney preference by the 15th of September 2022. So make sure you've done your research, you've selected the E12 course that you're looking at applying to, you've put it as your first University of Sydney preference by the 15th of September, and you've also uploaded your 3 E12 questions by that date. Alrighty, what I'm going to do is another quiz, test a bit of your knowledge again. So if you bear with me, I think we've got 4 questions this time. Alrighty, I'm going to launch. Here we go. So our first question is, what is the Educational Access Scheme? Is it A, a scholarship from UAC? Is it B, a scheme designed to assist students whose studies in year 11 or year 12 were negatively affected by circumstances beyond their control to gain entry into uni? Or is it C, a scheme to assist students who experience educational disadvantage from year 7 to year 12? And then our second question is, what is the school recommendation scheme? So is it A, a scheme designed to help schools recommend students for scholarships? Is it B, a scheme that gives applicants the opportunity to be assessed on a criteria other than or in addition to their ATAR? Or is it C, a scheme that allows schools to put forward students to receive adjustment factors? Question 3, when does E12 close? Is it the 3rd of November, the 15th of December, or the 15th of December? And then finally, our 4th question. So our last 2 are pretty much up on the screen now, so they might have been easy ones, but where does your E12 course need to be in your preference list when applications close on the 15th of September? Is it A, your highest University of Sydney preference? Is it B, my highest preference, or anywhere on the preference list? All right, thanks everyone. We're still going. There's still a few of you popping your answers in. I'll just wait a few more seconds. Got lots of people responding, which is awesome. All righty, let's go through the first one because we've got about 90% of you who have answered that one. So fantastic to see everyone got the correct answer. So the correct answer is B, a scheme designed to assist students whose studies in year 11 and 12 were negatively impacted by circumstances beyond their control and help them gain entry into university. So awesome, everyone. 92% of you got that one correct. Well done. Second question. So what is the school recommendation scheme? So that is B, and we've got 69% of you that answered that one correctly. And that's a scheme that gives applicants the opportunity to be assessed on a criteria other than or in addition to their ATAR. So the school's recommendation scheme is what we use for E12 to submit your E12, your 3 E12 questions that ask you about your community involvement and why you would like to study the course at the University of Sydney. And then our third question, when does E12 close? So fantastic, 98% of you got this one correct. So it closes on the 15th of September 2022. So mark that one in your diaries. That's the date to make sure that you have your E12 course listed as your first University of Sydney preference, and all your E12 responses are loaded into the SRS portal by that date, 15th of September. And then finally, our 4th question, where does your E12 course need to be in your preferences when applications close on the 15th of September? So fantastic, 70% of you said my highest University of Sydney preference, which is great. That's the correct answer. So it needs to be your highest University of Sydney preference within your 5 preferences on the 15th of September when your applications close. Fantastic. Alrighty, I'll share the results so everyone can see. Fantastic work, everyone. Thank you. Alrighty, so we'll move on. So what happens next? So once you've submitted your 3 E12 questions, you've done your educational access scheme applications, and you've put your E12 course as your highest University of Sydney preference on the 15th of September, what are the next steps? So you'll receive confirmation of your application and the course you've been assessed for in early October. Then after that, you'll sit your HSC, so make sure you study really hard for that. Make sure you then keep the course, your E12 course, in your preference list for the SRS UAC round. So that's really important. Make sure that you're keeping your course in your preference list for the SRS UAC round. You'll then receive your conditional offer in UAC's SRS round on the 11th of November. So again, remember the conditional offer means that you still need to fulfill any of the requirements or the eligibility requirements and conditions of your course in order to then be made an unconditional offer. So remember the difference between conditional and unconditional offers, because that's really important. You'll then receive your ATAR on the 15th of December. Okay, so once that's happened, check to make sure that you meet all the E12 ATAR and other course requirements. So you should, by this point, know whether you've met all the requirements of the E12 course that you've selected. Make sure that that your course is listed as your highest eligible UAC preference by the 16th of December. So this is your highest eligible UAC preference by the 16th of December. Then once that's done, you'll receive your unconditional offer on the 22nd of December. So this is UAC December round 2. So a few dates to keep in mind and write down to make sure that you're meeting those meeting those dates and the eligibility requirement for each of those dates, and where you need to have your preferences by those dates. So you can only gain one conditional offer for an E12 course, but if you change your mind by the main round, if you meet the E12 eligibility criteria and we have space left in the degree, you can change the new degree and we can make an offer to the updated course. So something to keep in mind and remember as well. Alrighty, so we've put together a bit of a timeline of some of the dates and what you need to do, I guess, over the next few months to make sure that you meet all the eligibility criteria, make sure that you have your E12 application in. So a few things are coming up in August. So as we mentioned earlier, make sure that you create your UAC application for undergraduate admission. Include your home address and your school, and this will allow UAC to check if you're eligible for socio-economic indexes for areas, or if you're at a rural or regional school and you meet those eligibility criteria. If you're applying for financial hardship, you'll need to go in and create an application for the Educational Access Scheme. So again, making sure that you're having a look and seeing what category of financial disadvantage you're eligible for and uploading all your documentation and supporting documentation into the application. So the first two will be automatically created for you. Financial disadvantage, you'll need to create the application yourself. Make sure that you during this time are looking at the E12 courses and checking the course requirements for those. Also checking your E12 eligibility, so making sure that you've chatted to your school principal, that you're a domestic New South Wales student studying the HSC or IB, and that you meet any of the other E12 eligibility. Alrighty, so then you complete your school's recommendation application. So that's answering the 3 E12 questions and uploading them into the SRS portal. So both of those, that needs to be done by the 15th of September. Make sure that your UAC application is submitted by this time as well, as the fees do go up in October. Before the 15th of September, also make sure that you have your E12 course as your highest University of Sydney preference by the 15th of September. So make sure you've got your SRS application loaded up into the SRS portal and that you've put your preferences in by the 15th of September. By November, you'll receive a conditional offer, and make sure that you keep your E12 course within your preference list by the 3rd of November for the SRS offer round. And then, what do we have? Will receive your E12 unconditional offer in December after the ATARs are released on the 15th of December. So your ATAR is released on the 15th of December. You'll have the 16th of December to make sure that your E12 course is your highest eligible preference within your preferences, and then you'll receive an E12 unconditional offer if you've met the E12 ATAR requirement and any additional admission criteria. So that happens on the 22nd of December. And then you'll begin uni in February. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 E12 questions that you'll need to answer as part of your application. And during July, August and September, we're going to be holding some consultations to be able to assist you in drafting and answering those questions. So I've included a QR code here that takes you through to be able to book a consultation appointment with one of our team, and we'll be able to assist you and provide you with some tips and tricks in addition to what Troy's talked about today to assist you with your E12 application and answer any other questions that you might have following today. So take a snapshot of that one and keep it handy so you're able to book in a consultation with us. And if following today you have any other questions as well, please feel free to contact one of our team. The best email address to reach out to us is admission.pathways@sydney.edu.au. So feel free after today, if you have any questions or you're starting to do research about E12 courses or you're looking on the UAC website and you have any questions, please reach out to us. So I might now invite Gia up, because I think Gia has some questions that we're going to answer. I think a few have come through the chat. So Gia and Troy, if you want to come up, and we'll answer some of the E12 questions that might have come through. So go for it, Gia.
Yeah, awesome. So first, I have a question for Troy. So what is the deadline for E12?
So the deadline to apply for E12 for 2023 admissions is midnight of Thursday, 15th of September, 2022. And you have to submit your UAC school's recommendation scheme.
Awesome. And Charlotte, so what degree will someone be assessed on for E12?
Thanks, Gia. So the course that you'll be assessed on for E12 is the E12 course that you place as your first University of Sydney preference at 11:59 on Thursday, the 15th of September, 2022. Thanks, Gia.
Awesome. Okay, now Troy again. So if I get an E12 offer and choose to defer till 2023, can the E12 scholarship be deferred as well?
Yes, in short, you can. So you can defer your E12 offer. However, to defer the actual scholarship, you would have to do a special application to the actual scholarships office. This ties back to what I was speaking of choose a realistic course. So, for example, choosing the course that your ATAR would be most applicable to, but then we know stuff can happen around there. So the best option is to get in contact with the scholarships office specifically.
Awesome, thank you. Charlotte, what is the difference between E12 and Broadway scheme?
Yeah, thanks, Gia. So the Educational Access Scheme is known as the Broadway scheme at the University of Sydney. So Broadway is for students who have experienced like long-term educational disruption. So that might be financial hardship, but it could also be illness, refugee status, or having responsibilities at home, so caring responsibilities at home. And this offers adjustment factors of up to 10 points in recognition of these circumstances. So E12, our E12 scheme also uses the Educational Access Scheme. However, under our E12 scheme, we only recognise 3 categories of disadvantage. So as we talked about before, that's low socio-economic status, financial hardship, or if you're attending a rural or regional school. So as we mentioned previously, there are some codes to look out for to make sure that you're E12 eligible. So those codes are AGO1, so that is the code for low socioeconomic status, SO1R or SO1C, and that's if you're attending a rural or regional school, and FO1A, B, FO1C, and FO1D are the codes to look out for financial hardship. So if you're eligible for any of those EAS codes and you meet all the other E12 eligibility, so as we mentioned before, if you're a New South Wales domestic student, doing your HSC or IB, then you would meet the eligibility criteria for E12.
Thank you. Yeah, so for Troy, I have another question. So this was another common question. Can I combine the adjustment factors from another admissions pathway, such as the Broadway scheme or the Futures Leader scheme, with the lower offer provided by E12?
In short, no. So how it was explained to me when I was in high school is you basically get whatever's better for you. So you can't combine more than one admission pathway, but the university will award you the one that gives you the most benefit. So for example, if you get more benefit out of the E12 scheme, but you're also eligible for something like the Future Leader scheme, you'll be awarded the E12 scheme if it gives you more benefit. It's basically what gives you either a scholarship or the most points on top of your ATAR for the selection rank at the university if you meet all the other conditions of that scheme, such as the 3 questions and the eligibility for the E12 program.
Thank you. Okay, Charlotte, so am I able to redo and resubmit my E12 response?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you are looking to update your E12 response, you can re-upload a new document into SRS. However, you won't be able to delete your old one. So UAC doesn't let you delete your old application. So what you'll need to do is when you upload your new document, just make sure that you change the name of it to include the name of the document and just put something like updated. So UAC and the University of Sydney know that that's the new application that they should be looking at.
Awesome. Yeah, and another common question that we've been getting is, what is the E12 ATAR for a certain degree? And if I answer that just really quickly, so we can find all of the E12 ATARs on the E12 website, and I will just link that through in the chat. And yeah, so that's the link to where you can find all the ATARs, E12 ATARs. Okay, and next, so Charlotte again, what happens if I don't meet the E12, the ATAR for my E12 course?
Yeah, so if you don't meet the ATAR for your E12 course, what I would recommend, as Gia mentioned, is going through and having a look at all the E12 courses on our website. Find the one that you're interested in that maybe has a lower ATAR. Look at that course and list that course as one of your preferences, and then potentially transfer into your dream course after that. So look at something with a lower ATAR, and then you'll be able to transfer into your dream course after your first year at the University of Sydney.
Thank you. Yeah, and this time for Troy. So what is the difference between assumed knowledge and prerequisite?
Thank you. This is a very common question that a lot of students get tripped up on. Basically, a prerequisite is a requirement for entry into the degree. The main one is the mathematics prerequisite. So everything that ranges from commerce, engineering, science, some of the health subjects, and economics. There's a few other ones, but those are the main ones. They require a mathematics requirement. The main requirement for the University of Sydney for mathematics is a mathematics band 4 in mathematics advanced or higher, or the equivalent under the IB system, or the specific diploma or program that you're doing wherever you are in Australia or around the world. So what that means is you need to meet that certain requirement before you can gain entry into that course that you've chosen. So when Charlotte mentioned that just because you're eligible for E12, you have to meet all the other requirements of the E12 scheme under the conditional offer that you receive, that includes stuff such as the mathematics prerequisite, but also some courses such as dentistry and medicine have their own interviews and assessment centers, as well as some stuff like music and visual arts has auditions and or performances. And then assumed knowledge is something that basically from day one, when you get into the course that you're doing, they will have assumed that you have done a certain level, generally HSC level of that certain subject. The main one for me was my friends who did biology and chemistry. They had biology/chemistry as the assumed knowledge for them in their Bachelor of Science, but also all the engineering courses have assumed knowledge of physics and extensional mathematics. Just because you haven't done something that is assumed knowledge doesn't mean you will be stopped from applying and getting an offer into that course. It just means that they will have assumed that you've done that to that certain level of HSC, extension 1 mathematics or physics, basically from day one. But there are options such as bridging courses. Specifically in the business school, we have something called PASS, which is peer assisted study sessions, but there's a bunch of different options out there for you to get you on track to where you want to be for assumed knowledge.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and so you were mentioning the math prerequisite. What would happen if I don't meet the math prerequisite? Charlotte?
Yeah, so that's a really common question that we get, and there's sort of 3 different pathways that you can take if you don't meet the mathematics prerequisite. So the first one is you can still study your area of interest, but do it through our share pool. So you might select something like a Bachelor of Arts, and if you have an interest in economics, you could do economics as your major within the Bachelor of Arts, and economics is offered through our shared pool. The other option is you could look at going into a course that doesn't have a mathematics prerequisite and then transferring over. So let's say you're interested in doing something like a Bachelor of Science, which has the mathematics prerequisite. You could potentially enroll in something like a Bachelor of Liberal Arts and Science, which doesn't have a mathematics prerequisite, and do your first year within that course and then look at transferring. And the final option is our MOOC, which is our massive open online course. This is basically an online course that consists of about 5 modules and then an exam, and that will help you meet the prerequisite for mathematics. So you would do that online. There's some information on our website about the process of the dates when you would do your exam and how to register for the MOOC, and that would meet the mathematics prerequisite requirements as well.
Great, thanks for that, Charlotte. Now, last question for Troy. Can you describe a week in your life as a student? Would you have like time to work and enjoy hobbies during the semester?
I can answer that. That's a very funny question because every single student will have a very different answer to this. So my first year, I was at uni 3 days a week. Compared to my third year of university, I'm at uni 3 hours a week. I definitely have enough time to work and enjoy my hobbies. So I work equivalent to full-time hours at the moment. I have been since basically the end of first year. But for a student such as Gio who does engineering, that may look a lot different because they have a lot more contact hours. So a lot of my friends who do something like architecture, they have a lot more hours where they have to be inside uni. So obviously in their houses, they don't have laser cutting machines or woodwork machines where they can make their models. But as me, for a commerce student, it's very different because a lot of my stuff is done online, such as Excel and programming, that sort of stuff. So a typical week of my life in my first year, which will be most relevant to you guys, would be you have lectures, which are generally compulsory in your first year. So those are 2-hour classes where the lecturer or teacher goes through the content for that week. Then you have a 1-hour tutorial, which is sort of like your high school classes. That's 1 hour where you're answering questions, which you should have done before class. And then you come in and then you talk through those questions and you basically, it's like high school. You spend 1 hour talking to your classmates about answers, and then they also go through like assessment tasks and that sort of stuff. But then other courses, you might have stuff like workshops. So I know in commerce, in one of the first year subjects, you have an accounting workshop, which is just like accounting skills and programming skills for stats. But then also within architecture courses, you have labs where you're actually in the studio using the big machines and all those big computers, and you actually have the time set aside to do that. So those are contact hours. Then you also have labs if you're a science student. But typical week in my life, you need 2 hours lecture, 1 hour tutorial, and then you're in the meantime, you're either working or you are doing your assessment tasks, which sort of vary depending on what period of the semester that you are in.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Troy. Yeah, just to add on a little bit as well. Yeah, so as an engineering student, you do have a little bit more contact hours usually, but even so, you still do have quite a bit of time to do some part-time work and enjoy your hobbies as well. So yeah, you do get to enjoy your have a work-life balance through all the other degrees as well. Nice. Okay, and last question. So what is the best way to get my questions about E12 answered after this?
Yeah, great question, dear. I'll take that one. So if anyone has any questions following the webinar today, please get in contact with us. That's what we're here for. We want to assist you with all questions that you might have and assist you with your E12 application. So the best email address is the one that's on the screen. So admission.pathways@sydney.edu.au. And just a reminder, I might flick back a screen. If you haven't already taken a photo of this one, this is for our E12 consultation. So if you're wanting to book in an E12 consultation in July, August or September, feel free to take a picture of this QR code and book something in.
Yeah, thank you. So that concludes all the questions and answers for today.
Thanks, Gia.
Yeah, if you want to finish up, thank you.
Fantastic. All right, thanks everyone. We got a little bit over time. I want to thank everyone for taking time out on their Tuesday evening to learn a little bit more about E12, and we hope we see some of your applications coming through. I would definitely encourage you, book in a consultation, reach out to us if you have any questions following today. We're really happy to answer them. Big thank you to Gia and Troy as well for sharing some of your insights, being an E12 student today, and the rest of our outreach and access team for answering all the questions that have come through the Q&A. If any of your questions haven't been answered today, again, feel free, admissions.pathways@sydney.edu.au. We're happy to answer all your questions. So send us an email. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.